the country whose title I've been so greatly privileged to bear during so much of my life and duty.
The final signature took only seconds, but it erased the last fragment of royal authority Prince Harry still possessed in Britain. King Charles did not merely reduce his son's ceremonial standing or close another palace door. He permanently removed Harry from eligibility to act as a Counsellor of State, the one surviving crown right that still connected the Duke to the constitutional machinery of the monarchy. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. Charles read the final paragraph twice. His hand hovered above the page, as though one last pause might soften what the document was about to do. A Counsellor of State is a royal figure permitted to carry out duties when the sovereign is unavailable. For Harry, that role was more than an unused privilege. It was the final constitutional thread tying him to the working crown. The king lowered the pen. No announcement followed. He placed the pen beside the decree and looked toward the empty chair across from him, where a son might once have sat. It removed Harry's legal capacity to act on behalf of the monarch in Britain and ended the last formal power he held inside the institution he had left. Harry received the sealed communication hours later. He tore through the opening lines, then stopped. His eyes returned to the first sentence as though the words might change if he read them slowly. Anger struck first. Then came something heavier. His father had not merely rejected a request. He had erased a piece of Harry's royal identity. The decision had not been born in anger. Charles had moved carefully through a controlled royal process involving only a small circle. A royal decree is a formal written act issued under the monarch's authority, and this one closed every escape route. There was no temporary suspension, no review date, no promise that private talks or family reconciliation could restore what had been taken. That absence changed everything. William knew the review was moving forward. Harry knew tension was rising. Yet neither brother understood how far Charles was prepared to go until the language became permanent. The decree explained what the king had done, but it did not reveal the private incident that convinced him action could no longer wait. That truth remained behind a closed door, inside a confrontation involving a father, two sons, and one demand the monarch could not forgive. To understand why Charles chose finality over family reconciliation, the story must now turn to the three men whose loyalties, wounds, and competing visions of the crown made this decision inevitable. Behind the decree stood three men, bound by blood, but separated by duty, resentment, and years of unfinished arguments. Charles saw a monarchy that could not survive divided loyalty. William saw a future endangered by uncertainty. Harry saw the final proof that his family had stopped treating him as a son and had begun treating him solely as a threat to the crown. Charles understood that the Counsellor of State dispute had moved beyond procedure. The role, which allows a senior royal to carry out duties when the sovereign is unavailable, forced him to choose between paternal instinct and constitutional stability. Every delay protected his son from humiliation, yet every delay also left uncertainty inside the institution he had sworn to defend. William viewed that uncertainty as a danger. Harry lived outside the working monarchy, rejected its restrictions, and condemned decisions made within palace walls. Yet he retained theoretical authority inside the same system. To the future king, that contradiction was not sentimental. It was combustible. The prince said this during a meeting with his father. He warned that affection could not be allowed to blur the constitutional line. Charles stiffened. The suggestion that he had been weak struck deeper than William intended. He answered that removing a son from royal authority was easy to recommend when the son was not your own. William did not retreat. He insisted that this was not revenge, and demanded that no briefing, accusation, or theatrical punishment accompany the removal. Harry was not to be shamed for public effect. The line simply had to become clear, because power without duty could no longer remain suspended between family loyalty and national responsibility. Harry felt the wound. He told Meghan that the palace had taken the last thing it could remove without denying his place in the family. She heard his anger, but recognized the grief beneath it. To him, the decree announced that his father no longer trusted him. Camilla found Charles alone after William had gone. The unsigned papers remained before him, untouched but no longer uncertain. She asked whether he doubted the necessity of the action. The king answered that he doubted only what it would cost. His words revealed something Harry did not yet know. The decision had already advanced beyond discussion. Charles had resisted for months. Then one royal security briefing changed everything. Harry made a demand that sounded, to him, like protection of his birthright. To William, it sounded like an attempt to claim power without accepting duty. That briefing became the point of no return, exposing not merely a dispute over status, but two incompatible beliefs about what Harry was entitled to command. The break did not begin with the final decree. It began inside a private Windsor meeting where Harry arrived expecting negotiation and left, believing he had been insulted. No cameras captured the exchange. No public statement admitted it occurred. But one demand made during that meeting transformed Charles's concern into alarm and convinced William that his brother's remaining crown authority could no longer be ignored. Palace advisors had warned the king for months that the situation could not remain unresolved. Harry still held theoretical authority inside the crown, yet he no longer lived under its discipline, confidentiality, or daily obligations. The divide between law and reality was becoming impossible to defend. Still, Charles resisted. He feared that formal removal would destroy the last hope of repairing the bond with his son. Harry entered the Windsor meeting without Meghan and spoke directly to his father. He said continued exclusion had made reconciliation meaningless. Any future cooperation, he insisted, would require official recognition of his place. The Duke did not ask for sympathy. He demanded certainty. William listened, then challenged him. The prince asked whether his brother was prepared to accept the restrictions, silence, and public discipline required of anyone trusted with crown authority. Harry answered that he would not surrender his independence merely to satisfy palace control. The words hardened the room. What one brother called freedom, the other called refusal. Then came the demand that changed everything. Harry wanted written assurance that, if Charles became unable to perform his duties, he could not be excluded from constitutional consideration simply because he lived abroad. Incapacity meant a period when the sovereign could not personally carry out official responsibilities, allowing designated royals to act temporarily in his place. Charles slowly removed his glasses. William pushed his chair back and said, authority could not be reserved like an inheritance while responsibility was repeatedly refused. Harry struck back. His place, he argued, came through birth and could not be erased by courtiers, advisors, or convenience. That single word birthright settled something inside the king. Charles heard not duty, but ownership. He saw that Harry still regarded royal power as something personal, something inherited, something the crown owed him regardless of service. The conversation ended without agreement. The Duke left believing he had defended his position. In truth, he had destroyed it. After the door closed, Charles turned to his private secretary and ordered a complete review of every lawful path toward permanent removal. He signed nothing that night, but the direction was unmistakable. When Harry later discovered that William had supported the review, the dispute ceased to be about procedure. It became a reckoning between brothers over loyalty, betrayal, and who had the right to protect the crown. Harry entered the room prepared to confront an institution. Instead, he found William waiting alone. There were no aides to soften the language, no secretaries to record an official version, and no father positioned between them. For the first time, the brothers faced the real argument beneath years of public hostility, whether Harry had abandoned only royal duty or forfeited the right to retain royal power. Harry had demanded the meeting after learning that William supported the constitutional review. That review was the formal examination of whether he could still hold authority inside the crown after leaving its working structure. Neither brother wanted the exchange reduced to official minutes. They needed to speak without protection, and without anyone turning their anger into careful palace language. The Duke believed his connection to the monarchy existed through birth, not employment. He could leave daily service without surrendering every right attached to his place in the family. William saw something far more dangerous. To him, crown authority required presence, discipline, accountability, and trust. Remove those duties, and the power could not honestly remain. Harry accused his brother first. "You are behaving like the king before the throne is yours." William's expression tightened, but he did not raise his voice. He answered that someone had to consider what came after private feelings damaged public confidence. Harry stepped closer, hearing not concern but ambition. The future king heard not pain, but another refusal to accept consequence. Then William delivered the accusation neither man could escape. You left the duty, not the power. You wanted freedom from the institution while keeping the authority it gave you. Harry placed both hands on the table. He insisted that he had never asked to be treated as an enemy. Then he demanded the truth. Had William personally told Charles to remove him? The prince did not retreat. He slid the draft decree across the table and admitted that he had advised their father to make constitutional reality match the truth. A decree was a formal command issued under the monarch's authority, and this one would end Harry's remaining right to act for the crown. The Duke's anger sharpened. He warned that if the palace presented the decision as a judgment on his loyalty, he would tell the world exactly how the family had forced him out. William answered that there would be no attack, no humiliation, and no public accusation, only a conclusion. Harry turned toward the door. William stopped him with one final admission. He said he had never wanted to win this argument, because victory meant accepting that his brother might never return. Harry paused, but he did not look back. With both sons refusing to yield, the draft returned to Charles. The next decision would define Harry's status, William's future crown, and the limits of royal blood itself. Royal decisions are rarely made by a single voice, even when only one hand signs the page. Around Charles stood a small circle of figures, who understood the danger differently. Some feared constitutional confusion. Others feared a family collapse that could never be repaired. But as the king listened, one truth became unavoidable. Leaving Harry's authority untouched was itself a decision, and perhaps the more dangerous one. Charles alone could force the final change, yet he did not reach it in isolation. William pressed for clarity. Camilla watched the emotional strain. Constitutional officials examined the limits of royal authority, while the monarch's private secretary controlled every document and every conversation. A Counsellor of State was expected to act within Britain's constitutional rules, when the sovereign could not. Harry remained technically eligible, but his life abroad and separation from royal discipline had created a dangerous gap between legal possibility and practical trust. Camilla challenged the delay after dinner. She told Charles that hesitation would not repair his relationship with his son. It would only preserve uncertainty. The queen consort did not speak cruelly, but she did not soften the truth either. The king answered that finality might protect the monarchy while leaving him with one less son willing to speak to him. Later, Charles opened a desk drawer and removed an old family photograph. Harry was still a child in it, untouched by duty, resentment, or public war. The monarch studied his face for several moments before turning the picture downward. He could not reconcile that boy with the constitutional problem now placed before him. Then came the compromise. One advisor proposed a temporary suspension. Harry would keep his eligibility in name, but he would be prevented from acting unless circumstances changed. Charles read the proposal carefully. For a moment, it offered exactly what he wanted: safety without permanent rejection. William refused it. The prince warned that suspension would only delay the same crisis. It would tell his brother that the authority remained negotiable and could return through pressure, emergency, or another private demand. An unresolved power, he argued, could become a weapon at the worst possible moment. Charles said nothing. Then he lifted the temporary proposal, tore it once through the center, and placed both halves beside the permanent decree. "I will not leave the next sovereign to finish a decision I was too frightened to make," he said. That sentence ended the debate. Confidential notices were drafted for Harry, senior royals, and government officials. Each word was controlled. Each recipient was chosen carefully. Yet the secrecy now had a limit. By the time the sealed communications left the king's office, the decision had escaped the private world of fathers and sons, and its consequences began reaching every person still tied to Harry's royal life. The decree did not arrive with ceremony. There was no televised proclamation, no trumpet call, and no dramatic gathering of the royal household. It came in controlled language on official paper. Yet when Harry reached the final sentence, the effect was devastating. The monarchy had not merely limited his future. It had declared that his blood alone no longer entitled him to stand inside the crown's circle of trust. Harry received the formal notice before the public announcement. The document confirmed that his eligibility to serve as a Counsellor of State had ended. That role allowed selected royals to perform official duties when the sovereign was unavailable. and its removal was described as necessary for lasting constitutional clarity. The words were calm. Their meaning was brutal. William, Camilla, Princess Anne, and the other senior royals received separate instructions. None of them was to discuss the private arguments behind the decision. The future king read his notice in silence. The queen consort understood that the palace had crossed a line it could never uncross. Anne recognized something even colder. This was no longer a family disagreement waiting to heal. It was permanent separation written into royal authority. Harry placed the letter on a table and walked away. Moments later, he returned. He folded the document carefully, almost respectfully, then said that Charles had finally chosen the crown over any chance of understanding his son. Meghan heard the anger, but she also heard the wound beneath it. She urged him not to answer while pain was controlling every word. The Duke accused the palace of hiding personal rejection behind constitutional language. She replied that an impulsive attack would allow the decree to define him exactly as his critics expected: unstable, bitter, and unable to accept consequence. Harry began drafting a statement anyway. He accused the monarchy of punishing independence and manipulating birthright. His finger hovered above the command that would release it. Then he stopped. One sentence named William directly, and once published, it would turn the decision into open war between brothers. A second page changed the moment. Beneath the formal notification was a handwritten message from Charles. The king wrote that the action concerned the crown, not the love he still carried as a father. Harry read it twice, then separated the note from the decree. Back in Britain, Anne found her brother standing alone after the notices had been delivered. She asked whether he was certain. Charles closed the folder and answered, "Certain is not the same as unhurt." Harry's statement remained unpublished. Then, an unexpected request arrived from his father. One final conversation, with no William, no officials, and no palace machinery between them. The decree had settled Harry's constitutional position, but it had not settled the bond between father and son, and that final exchange would decide whether anger or acceptance defined the ending. For once, there were no advisors, no competing statements, and no constitutional language to hide behind. Charles and Harry spoke privately as father and son, even though the crown remained present in every silence between them. Neither man entered expecting the decree to be withdrawn. The question was no longer whether Harry would keep his authority. It was whether anything human could survive after that authority had been taken away. Charles had requested the meeting without William, Camilla, Meghan, or palace officials. He wanted his son to hear the reason directly, not through another sealed notice or carefully written statement. Yet the king began with the hardest truth. The decree would not be reconsidered. Harry did not argue for the title. He said he had come to understand why his own father believed he had become unworthy of trust. The Duke's voice remained controlled, but the wound beneath it was unmistakable. Every institutional punishment, he said, had carried the same message. The family loved him only while he obeyed. Charles rejected that accusation. Love, he insisted, could not require him to leave uncertainty inside the monarchy. The crown was not personal property. It was a duty that demanded trust, discipline, and presence from anyone permitted to act in its name. Then the monarch admitted something he had avoided for years. Duty had become the language he used whenever honest conversation frightened him. He had waited too long to speak plainly, then allowed officials, letters, and headlines to carry emotions he should have expressed himself. Harry heard regret, but not surrender. The Duke placed the handwritten note between them. He said he had kept it because it sounded like his father, while the decree sounded like the king. Charles touched the edge of the paper, but did not take it back. The note belonged to his son now, along with the pain that had made it necessary. Harry then revealed that he possessed enough private correspondence to expose the entire struggle behind the decision. A documented account of their messages and letters could turn the private rupture into a public reckoning. Charles did not threaten him. He simply said, Harry must decide whether being heard was worth destroying the last private truth they still shared. Silence followed. At last, Harry said he would condemn the removal, but he would not publish their exchange. It was not forgiveness. It was something quieter and more difficult, a decision not controlled by rage. The private battle ended without reconciliation, but also without destruction. And when Britain awoke to the announcement, that restraint became as significant as the decree itself. By morning, the private decree had become a national judgment. Broadcasters interrupted their schedules. Palace correspondents gathered outside royal gates. Supporters called the decision necessary. Critics called it merciless. Yet one image captured the mood more powerfully than any debate. Harry's photograph beside a black line through the words "Crown Authority," printed across the front page of Britain's most aggressive morning newspaper. Buckingham Palace moved quickly to control the meaning. Its statement described the removal as a constitutional clarification, designed to ensure that anyone eligible to act for the sovereign remained active, available, and fully connected to the working monarchy. The language was calm and disciplined. The reaction was neither. Supporters argued that Charles had finally forced royal authority to match reality. Harry lived abroad, rejected palace restrictions, and no longer carried daily duties. Critics saw something colder. To them, the king had transformed a family estrangement into an official act of exclusion. Harry watched the coverage without speaking. A broadcaster called the decree his final constitutional separation from Britain. The Duke's expression hardened at the word separation. Advisors urged him to appear immediately for an interview, but he refused. He knew one angry sentence could bury the restraint he had chosen with his father. Charles faced a different kind of pain. A stack of front pages was placed before him. One showed childhood photographs of William and Harry beneath the headline, "Brothers Divided by the Crown." The king stared at it, then turned it face down. The decree had protected the institution, but the newspapers had exposed its human cost. Outside Buckingham Palace, a small crowd gathered. One man held a sign reading, "Duty before birthright." Nearby, a woman placed a handwritten message against the railings. "A son is still a son." The two statements stood only feet apart, yet they captured the entire national divide. Broadcasters prepared for retaliation. Commentators predicted leaked letters, private accusations, and another public attack powerful enough to overwhelm the palace's explanation. Then Harry released his statement. The Duke rejected the decision and denied that distance had erased his devotion to Britain. Yet he acknowledged that the monarch had chosen a different constitutional path. He did not attack Charles. He did not expose their private conversation. That restraint changed the story. Without an explosive enemy to condemn, the public was left facing a harder truth. Charles may have acted necessarily, but necessity did not make the outcome painless. With the shouting reduced and the decision beyond reversal, only the final judgment remained: what the king had protected, what Harry had lost, and what the monarchy had become in the process. In the end, Charles achieved exactly what the decree was designed to accomplish. The crown's line of authority became clear. Harry could no longer occupy a constitutional position while living beyond the institution's duties and discipline. Yet the king's victory carried no sense of triumph. He had protected the monarchy from ambiguity by turning his separation from his younger son into something official, permanent, and impossible to misunderstand. Harry's eligibility to serve as a Counsellor of State was permanently ended. That position allowed selected royals to carry out official duties when the sovereign was unavailable, and it had represented the last formal authority connecting him to the working crown. With its removal, responsibility now rested only with those actively serving the monarch. The decision created a new and unforgiving principle. Birth alone could no longer guarantee continuing constitutional power. Authority demanded duty, presence, confidentiality, and accountability. Harry still belonged to the family by blood, but he no longer belonged to the machinery that carried the monarchy forward. Charles returned to the study after the public reaction had quieted. He opened the drawer containing the old family photograph and turned it upright again. The gesture changed nothing legally. It restored no title and reversed no decree, but it proved that the father had not completely vanished behind the sovereign. Harry made his own choice. He placed the decree inside a private file rather than destroying it. The Duke accepted that the crown no longer saw him as part of its constitutional future. Instead of releasing the private correspondence he had threatened to expose, he decided his life could no longer revolve around recovering what the palace had removed. William understood the cost. The future king told his father that the monarchy was safer from uncertainty, yet he showed no satisfaction. He admitted that protecting the crown had required accepting a family fracture he once believed could still be repaired. Harry kept Charles's handwritten message separate from the official document. One represented the end of royal authority. The other preserved a damaged human connection neither man had been willing to destroy. The decree was not merely another punishment in a long royal feud. It declared that service outweighed blood and that power could not survive without responsibility. The king closed the constitutional file and left the photograph standing. Across the distance, his son closed his copy but kept the personal note. There was no further appeal, no hidden compromise, and no remaining crown power for Harry to reclaim. The decision was final. The constitutional bond was broken, and its emotional cost belonged permanently to both father and son. Duty had preserved the throne, but it had not protected the heart from paying the price. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.